welcome back. Thanks for joining me on the second and final episode of the Civic saga, where I am fixing the blown engine in my beautiful 97 blue Honda Civic. If you're not caught up on exactly what the issue was, check out my last video where I tore it all down and did the troubleshooting. But in this video, I'm going to build it all back up and see if I can get it to start. So let's jump right into it. I just finished procuring all the various parts I need to finish this repair, which starts with this box. This is my new remanufactured cylinder head from a shop out of West Virginia called the cylinderheadshop.com. They seem to have a really good reputation online, and it sounds like all they do is refurbish cylinder heads and resell them on eBay. I actually got this off their website. Believe it or not, a completely remanufactured cylinder head for this 97 Civic was $280 shipped to my door. Absolutely unbelievable price. I can't believe that some shop can afford to do all that machine work, replace valves, camshafts, regrind everything flat, and ship it to me for $280. But I'm very grateful, and I hope I'm not getting what I'm paying for. But it seems online anyway that these guys are pretty reputable and they do a good job. And it comes with a 1-year warranty, so we'll see if that holds up. And I do have to return this core, which is what came out of my car. Of course, this is used and old, but the idea is they go back through, they remachine all this, replace all the back components, and they can resell it as a new remanufactured one again. So I can't complain really, and they gave me the box I ship it back in and the return label, so it's really easy. I just have to do it within 30 days, so it gives me a timeline for this project and gets my butt in gear. So I actually am a little bit grateful for the core return to make sure that I got the right parts and everything works. I just have to transfer over some of these auxiliary items like my distributor here, which should not be a big deal. Aside from the remanufactured head, I also got this gasket set, which was super cheap. It's 35 bucks on Amazon. This includes a head gasket, but more importantly, it has a lot of the other auxiliary gaskets, valve covers, exhaust, intake, a little bit of gray RTV, and some other miscellaneous things you might need when you're putting on a new head. As far as the head gasket goes, I'm actually not gonna use it from this cheap $35 kit because it's such a critical, important gasket. I was recommended to get a good name brand one, so I picked this one up from Advanced. It is a Felpro brand. It was like 40 bucks. Had a gift card, so I actually paid like $2. But I trust this a little bit more than I trust the $35 gasket set, and this one's a little bit harder to replace too, much more than something like a valve cover gasket. So all in on parts right now, I think I'm like under 320 bucks, which is awesome. Typically, you couldn't even get a head for less than like 500, 1,000 bucks, who knows. I said this before in the last video, like the parts for this car are just so incredibly cheap. Only if you can do your own work. It makes it worth it to keep the thing going. So that's what I'm gonna do. All right, let's get this thing unpacked and see what we got. Make sure it's the right thing. Look at that beauty. And it even comes with this handy tag about making sure you got the right exact head, follow the manufacturer's instructions to put the head in, and bring your core back. And that is a good point because I was able to find the manufacturer's instructions online. The Honda service manual is just floating around the interwebs for free. I printed out the applicable pages on adjusting valves and putting a new head on, that sort of thing. So that's what I'm gonna use to guide me in putting this back together.
Yeah.
Before I get too far, I want to address the crack in this exhaust manifold that I found when I was disassembling. I think this is steel, so it should be fairly easily weldable. I'm just gonna Dremel this and prepare it for weld, and then I'm going to drop this off at work and see if one of the guys in our shop would be able to weld it up. I work at a manufacturing facility with some like world-class welders, so I think they might just be able to do this on the side and kind of under the table. We'll see. I got my exhaust manifold taken care of. I did take it to work to the weld shop, and unfortunately they tried to TIG it but said the impurities were so bad that it was just sparking all over the place and they weren't comfortable doing it. So my buddy and my coworker Dan stepped in with his MIG welder, MIG'd it up, smoothed it back down, and then heat treated it to take away any internal stresses that might cause it to crack again. And I think it's gonna work. So shout out to Dan for helping me out with that. I really appreciate it. I'm cleaning the tops of my pistons off with this little plastic brush on a die grinder. It works pretty well. Here's one that I've done so far, and it looks almost like new compared to one that I haven't touched yet. And I am just being careful to just the piston surface only. Some folks will do the whole head surface with this, but I think it's a little bit too abrasive for this aluminum. So the sealing surface right around the piston here and the rest of the head, I am just doing with a regular old-fashioned Scotch-Brite pad. I've got everything I think I need bolted on this thing. I've got this set to top dead center. I've got this set to top dead center. I've cleaned this thing meticulously. I've made sure that there's oil on the inside of these cylinders for when it first starts up. I think I'm ready to put it back together.
Yeah.
Part of this job was actually just getting this timing belt back on. I was able to get it off just by slipping it off and not loosening it, but to get it back on, it didn't work so well that way. So I had to take the whole front cover off the engine here to expose the tensioner pulley and make sure that the drive pulley was timed correctly. And the real kicker on that is the manual tells you to take this whole lower cover off, which requires removing the crankshaft pulley and all of the serpentine belts and everything else. And I'm pretty sure you can get to the timing belt adjusting nut with this little black rubber cover here. So in short, don't always listen to the manual. The last semi-tough thing I gotta do is adjust all my valves. I'm not gonna talk about how exactly to do it. There's a lot of good videos out there, which I've watched, of course. They keep all of the valves totally loose coming from the reman place just because they know you're gonna have to adjust them anyway, and that's what I'm about to do. I feel like I finally have all the miscellaneous other things hooked back up to the engine, valve covers on, refilled my coolant, the RTV on my valve cover gasket should be dry. I think it is finally time to start it up. I'm always really nervous because I don't know if I screwed something up and I'm gonna have to take this all apart again, or if I'm just gonna have to scrap the car or what, but let's give it a shot. I think we have a winner. Sounds completely normal. It is no longer missing on one cylinder. And it doesn't smell like straight raw fuel back here. It smells like burn fuel. We're smoking a little bit, but I think that is just oil that I dripped down there, or oil from my hands. Sounds much better. It is idling a little bit high. Starts off at like 1500, then it'll climb up to probably 1,600. And this car usually idles at like probably less than 1,000, 900 RPM. And then it'll randomly kind of drop off. So I'm wondering if I have a vacuum hose disconnected or something. I'm gonna take it for a short drive and see if that fixes it. Well, she made it down the road a mile and back. But it is surging like crazy now. Idle is just surging up and down and up and down. Yeah, between like 1,700 and 1,000 RPM, like every 3 seconds. I'm gonna have to do some Googling. All right, after a little bit of Googling, I think I've solved my problem. I thought it was low coolant or air in the cooling system since I just drained it, but that turned out not to be the issue. I put plenty of coolant in it and let it bleed properly. What actually turned out to be the issue, which was solved with nothing more than a hammer and a socket extension, was the idle air control valve, which is down in there. You can't even see it, but that's what allows air into the engine at idle and controls our idle speed. And that thing probably was just a little bit gummed up from sitting for like, I don't know, 2.5 months since I've been working on this. So just a few taps with the hammer got this thing idling smoothly again. So if it happens again, I might have to clean it out, but it seemed to do the trick. Well, it's been like 10 days now since I've finished the repair, and I have put like a tank of fuel through this thing, and I'm happy to report it is good to go. I did have to remove and clean the intake air control valve, which took about an hour. That wasn't a big deal, and that totally cleared up the issue for good with the whole idle surging thing. But it's safe to say, at least for now, I saved this thing for the scrapyard. We'll see what the next major catastrophic failure is. I really like this car, and I'm really happy to see that it's going to still be on the road. Thanks for following along on this little repair saga here. If you're a mechanic, leave a comment on how much this would have cost to take to your shop. I was guessing between $2,000 to $3,000, which would have definitely made this $800 car not worth saving. But it goes to show if you can do your own work, parts are cheap for these little cars, and it keeps them out of the scrapyard. Stay tuned for more weekly content. Our house site is developing rapidly this fall, and we are going to be ready to break ground next spring. So a lot of our content in the coming year or so will be focused on that. If you'd like to support our channel for free, as always, like and subscribe, comment below, share with your friends. If you'd like to support it all monetarily, this is something new we have. We put our Amazon wish list below. It's going to be small things that we need for the house, tools, materials, that sort of thing. And if you felt compelled to support us there, we'd be extremely appreciative for your support. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.